Hello, YouTube. This is Hip Hop Outreach Podcast sharing biblical truth. I'm on here to share prayer. Prayer is not about you doing all the talking. That is not prayer. That's not prayer. For prayer to be effective, Jesus Christ needs to be speaking back to you. For prayer to be effective, Jesus needs to be speaking back to you. It's not about you doing all the talking. Psalms 85 says, I will listen carefully. A lot of Christian men and women don't listen to Jesus. They just talk, talk, talk. And then they get frustrated because they're not listening to what Jesus Christ is saying. They're not listening. They just praying, praying, praying. And they be explaining stuff. You don't have to explain stuff to him. He knows. He just says, submit your prayer request to him with supplication and thanksgiving. But a lot of Christian men and women are not listening to Jesus. No, they just praying, 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 praying. Only thing they did was hear their own voice. They're not listening to the voice of Jesus Christ. They just praying, 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 praying. For prayer to be effective, Jesus Christ needs to be speaking back to you. If that's not happening, then you're wasting your time. Prayer is not about us doing all the talking. No. Psalms 85 says, I will listen carefully what the Lord has to say. That's Psalms 85, verse 8. Psalms 85, verse 8 says, show us your unfailing love, grant us our salvation, your salvation. I will listen carefully to what the Lord has to say. So, for prayer to be effective, Jesus needs to be speaking back to you out of his word. And we don't even know what we ought to pray. How do you pray? What is prayer? Some people just start going through the motions. Romans 8:26 says, we don't know what we ought to pray. He'll pray through you. He'll show you how to pray. That's Romans 8:26. So for prayer to be effective, Jesus Christ needs to be speaking back to you. How do you know when Jesus is speaking to you out of his word? The peace of God will flood your heart. That's how you know. So that's real prayer. Prayer is not about you explaining stuff. A Christian man and woman, you don't have to explain stuff to Jesus. He knows. All he wants you to do is submit that prayer request. Submit it. And he want to talk to you. He want to speak to you out of his word. You know he's speaking to you when the peace of God will flood your heart. So that's real prayer. Prayer is not you doing all the talking and you explaining stuff. You don't have to explain nothing. He wants to pray through you. Romans 8:26, he said, submit your prayer requests with supplication and thanksgiving. If you be quiet and you listen to Jesus, you can hear that he's answering your prayer, that your prayer have been confirmed. He want to confirm your prayer request. But if you're doing all the talking, you're not going to know if he got it. That's why so many godly men and women, they get frustrated because you're not listening. He only speaks out of his word only. So for prayer to be effective, Jesus needs to be speaking back to you. That's Psalms 85, verse 8. And Romans 8:26, we don't know what we ought to pray. He gonna pray through you. You gotta let Jesus Christ pray through you. This is Hip Hop Outreach Podcast, sharing biblical truth. Bye-bye.